Yeah. So the first thing that I was going to say in the discussion, and first of all, I once again thank you to both of our speakers. I thought they did a great job talking about really talking about the same subject, but from a very different perspective. So and that was really the effect that we wanted. I guess the first thing that I wanted to talk about is that before you go down the steps that Shannon was talking about and Rich was talking about, is really just not to be daunted. The company that I work for, PayPros, we have about 3,000 clients. We have operations in Florida and Boston. And so we're much larger than a lot of the local companies around here, but we're a fraction of the size of ADP, Paychex, and Paylocity. We get a lot of our clients from them because, our system's a little more advanced and our service is more personalized. But from a talent acquisition standpoint, we actually get a lot of our service people from the big three. And I'm yet to hire a salesperson in my department that isn't from one of the big three, wasn't trained by one of the big three. So I guess the first thing is just not to be daunted when you're competing against companies that are much larger than you, they're better known than you, they have bigger budgets than you. Just not to be daunted as you pursue talent, because there's something special about you, there's something special about working in Maine that can attract the right candidate. So all right. Are we close to getting a microphone? All right. Well, I can hand you this microphone anyways. So does anyone have raise your hand if you have a question. And
check
very
1
good.
2 1 2.
Oh, all right. Here, I'll just, thanks. Great. Just tell us your name and the company that you work for, and then ask your question.
My name is Neely Stanton. I'm from Midcoast Federal Credit Union.
Yep.
And my question is for Shannon, and it is regarding the transparency of pay, and with the upcoming minimum wage increase for the state of Maine, and recognizing that we may have to pay new hires higher rates than what we are paying our current employees. How do you handle that with your employees?
We kind of prepped ahead. So next year is our big jump. We'll be going to an entry level at 15 because we want to get ahead of the game. So for the last 2.5 years, we've done an annual and a mid-year to make jumps each time. But we recognize it's going to be a big comp jump this year. At the same time, we communicate a lot. We do a lot of communication at review time. We talk with supervisors. I go through the compensation structure with the supervisors so they understand it. We talk about the difference of, we went a long time ago, there's no such thing as seat time. I got this job because I've been here X amount of time. That no longer exists. And we talk about pay for performance. And it's a constant juggle. Every time a new hire comes on, I have to look at it and say, all right, if I'm going to pay this person this, what's the ripple effect going to be? What about other people in that role? What about other people in that pay grade not in that role? Is there something that justifies? And the only way we've been able to do it is constantly communication and explaining what's happening and being right out there. But we are having to keep up. We've had to make 4 or 5% increases in order to be prepared to bring those others on.
All right. Not so bad. Just a couple of rows up. All right. There you go.
Hi, I'm Danielle Tabor. I'm from Certify. This question's for Shannon. So my team sends out a ton of surveys to our employees, but we've never asked the question about the unwritten policies, and I think that's brilliant. My question for you is, how do you address that?
The first thing I do is to, kind of have culture shock, because we all think that we're pretty clear and communicative, and I don't like to accept the fact sometimes that, wow, people, with all that I've said, they still think this is what's going down. Then the next step, I go to the supervisors, and we have quarterly and monthly with different supervisors, and I sit down and say, hey, I can't pinpoint which staff said this, nor does it matter. It doesn't matter which department. This is an unwritten rule, so let's talk about it. We've finally gotten to the point that the supervisors will actually, step up and say, yes, I can understand why people are thinking that way. Initially, it was everybody took offense. They had such ownership that, it was about an offense. But now we actually, we look at it. We'll put it out there afterwards. And the only way to explain what we really want people to think is to put the unwritten rule right out there. According to staff, this is the unwritten rule that they think we have. We need to explain this because that's not the rule. And it takes time to grow that culture where people can actually come into my office to not whine, but to actually come in and say, hey, you said this wasn't the unwritten rule, but this is what's happening. But it is really, I found that was the best way to get that elephant in the closet. What is everybody thinking? I know they are, they're just not saying it.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. Okay. Thanks.
My name is Rob. I am the marketing director at the Nonanthem Resort, and my question is for Rich. So
He's got one.
I couldn't let you just sit up there. So basically, I'm looking for some insight. If you're going to do some recruitment strategies with Facebook, you're going to run paid advertisement. What are some of the best practices that you like to employ, specifically the campaign objectives? It's a little bit tricky when you're doing employment ads. You can't restrict age and so forth. So the targeting is a little bit different. So what kind of campaign objectives or best practices do you like to employ there?
Hear me? That's all
I
that
can
matters.
hear-
There we go.
there you go.
Okay. So I would treat it in the same way that I would treat lead gen for a regular business. So my goal would be is if I'm looking for applicants, I want them to get to my application form. So it would all be about traffic and possibly conversions if you're setting up that ad. And you're absolutely right. You cannot go after, you can't do demographics, so you can't do like age or gender or any of those sort of things. I was considering if you could do like, you take all your employees and then you find their friends through Facebook's, but that actually won't work either. But what you might also try doing as far as targeting goes, is a little bit outside your question, is you could, if you have a big enough company, you could take the emails of your best employees, put them to Facebook and say, create a lookalike audience based on this audience. So maybe you would find people like some of your best performers or the people who are best fits for your company, and that might be one way to target, and just make sure you're not going after just one gender, just one age group.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, okay. Good.
Hi, I'm Denise Williams. I'm the HR manager for Port Property Management in Portland. And my question's for Shannon. Going back to the transparency issue, I just started with my company at the end of July. They had never had an HR manager previously, so I'm like writing the book. It's exciting and challenging at the same time. But one of the things that I noticed immediately was pay equity. We're not transparent. I want us to be transparent, but how to get there is my question, especially since there's no rhyme or reason for the way they've come up with these people's salaries, and there's a lot of disparity. And do you have any tips to get to the point where we can be transparent without shocking people?
Right. Wow. First, I'd be talking with senior leadership sometimes there's not even an awareness of the disparage and how great it is. And the concept of when people hear about this, oh my God, there's going to be mutiny on the bounty here. And nowadays, there was a day when nobody talked about their pay, and we all in HR could say, and don't. This is your pay, and don't go tell anybody. And we all know that, we can't say that anymore, and that's a good thing, and people are talking about their pay. So my guess is that some people already know. that there is this inequity going around, and they think that it's a big, deep, dark secret because no one's talking about it. When I say transparency, we don't list everybody's name and everybody's income. However, we do list everybody's job description, what pay grade it comes under, so everybody knows job descriptions are out there for everybody. The pay grade of every job description is out there. I don't list the mid, and max, but if somebody contacts me specifically and says, can you tell me the pay grade for that job? I'll tell them the pay grade. I rarely give the max because the max is overpayment, generally. However, when I give the min and the mid, I explain what they mean. And people get the min when they have X, Y, and Z. We're shooting to get the mid, that's market, within 2 years or within 3 years, so that they don't see that number and say, oh, well, then I should be there. That should be my pay. So there comes with it a great explanation, and really making sure that your supervisors know that explanation so that they're not muffing up the works, if you will. Sooner explain it, and they explain it a different way. If I was with a company that had that huge discrepancy, the first thing would be to sit down and say, we need to, and show the senior leaders of, this is where we're at, and this is just gender equity that's an issue. This is, some of it might be explainable. We have inequity too. People in the same position that are getting paid less, but I can prove on paper that it's about personal performance because we're for a pay for performance. The reason why that person is $2 more an hour than you is because your last 2 reviews were X. However, there's also the rationale that I sit with managers, and we should not have an employee who has a needs improvement more than 1 year. Why do we have that employee? Either your job is broken or their job is broken, so make up your mind. But there should not be any employee in our company with needs improvement for more than 2 years, which means they should all be moving up. But it is going to take small steps. Like in our company, first small step, explaining the comp package before I ever even put a job grade. People didn't even know what job grades were. So each year it was like a little step, a little step, a little step.
Anyone else? Katie.
You and I need to do lunch because I'm in the exact same position. So. Can you speak more, Shannon, to are you being transparent about the culture in a particular department while interviewing? It's one thing to give the whole culture, the positive culture and the reputation of the entire company, and then when you're going, oh my gosh, that employee just quit because that manager was, quote, nicer in the interview than in real life.
Right. Well, we all think and we all hope that people come to the interview with their best behavior, both the manager and the employee. However, I am a big proponent with our supervisors to say, you know what, tell it like it is. If you're shortly understaffed, then say you're understaffed. Don't have this person come on and think that life is going to be a bed of roses if you have some, turmoil going on. Now, that doesn't mean scare them to death, but we need to be honest, and we definitely interview and talk about the differences in departments. We talk about the differences in management style, and I tell the manager, you need to be upfront with the kind of management style you have. There's no right, there's no wrong. Well, there's some wrong. But you need to be upfront with the kind of management style you have, because you're going to have an unsuccessful staff person if you tell them you manage one way and then in reality it's different. And that includes, as you said, this is the culture of the company, this is what we want to believe the whole company is like. And then now let me tell you about my department, because they're very different things. And let me tell you how our department works. And let me tell you how I am as a supervisor. And this is what your day is going to look like. I always ask, I meet with new employees, usually like on the second week or so, and say, so, tell me, is it what you thought? Now, granted, we all take that with a grain of stone because it's always overwhelming when anybody starts a new job. And, it is, oh my God, why did I take this job? What was I thinking? But I always want to know, is this what you bought into? Is this what you wanted? Which is why we do the initial surveys as well. But I do think that there should be honesty. We've had people leave as well, and we go back afterwards and say, what was broken? What was it that we didn't disclose that when they got here, they realized it wasn't a good fit? And it can be done in the screening as well. We have a screening call that we do at first, and we kind of protect the managers that way. We do a screening call and say, hey, we need to talk about the department a little bit. How does that sound? The manager doesn't need to even, they're not even involved yet. So if that person says, yeah, don't move me forward, no harm, no foul. The manager's feelings don't need to be hurt. They don't even know that that person even was an option.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, I mean, she keeps saying, to be honest, I mean, one term that I would use is undersell, because, if it takes a while for someone to get up to speed, you need to be honest about that, because if after, a short time they feel a little overwhelmed, they might leave, they might think there's something wrong with them or there's something wrong with the job. So I think a little underselling, during the interviewing process definitely goes a long way. All right. Is that it? All right. Well, fabulous. Thank you. Oh, did you have? Oh, okay. Well, that's good because you're in the back, so I don't want to go all the way up there. But anyways, thank you so much for joining us. We'll send you an invite out to our series in the springtime, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.